present to you something which is very different. It's like the learned friend here talks about, I'm going to talk about something which is we witness every day, which is conflict. But most other conflicts persist. Why is it so important in healthcare setting? I think the question that I ask is it important to understand conflict? Yes, no? I hope everybody's had their breakfast, tea. So we need some more noises. Yes, no?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll start from the basic. What is conflict? It is about a personality. How many people know personalities here? What is a personality? Anybody? Answer. Do you think I'm a personality? Yes, no? It's a very simple question. Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes or no? Yes. What kind of a personality I am? Answer? You have to judge, right? But I'll give you an answer. It starts here. Your judgment is all in your head, brain, grey cells. What is a personality? It's made up of 3 elements. We talk about a type or a trait. I, as a psychologist, after doing my master's, believe I've got another person who's going to follow me. I'm a big fan of trait. Trait is very sublime. There are things that you're made of, your fabric, which is not going to change. I'm not going to dwell on that. But 3 elements which make up a personality: the physical appearance, the me, there is a psychological wiring, right, which is not seen, and the last is your environment. So PPE, everybody remembers? So always remember personality. You can't look at personality as what you see, not the physical appearance, not only the psychological makeup, but also the environment that the person is in. And why is this important? I'll talk about it. Personality, if anybody wants to know, is basically, there is an acronym we use in psychology. It's called Big Five. It's called OCEAN. OCEAN. O stands for openness. C stands for consciousness. What is the next?
Environment.
E stands for extraversion. What's the next? A stands for agreeableness. And finally, the most important, N stands for neuroticism. You know what is neuroticism?
No.
Anger. Or no anger. Peace. Why is this important? In industrial psychology, 3 elements are extremely elemental for anybody: healthcare worker, senior, junior, boss, teams. E, extraversion. A, agreeableness. N, neuroticism. And why? We'll talk about it because these are the elements of conflict. And as you have seen, typically conflict is about basic instincts. I'm not going to talk about this. Any 90s child here? I'm not going to talk about this. It's not Sharon Stone, for sure. Okay, quick quiz questions. Everybody agrees there are positive and negative feelings? Yes. Yes? Now I want somebody to take a pen and paper and quickly write down the positive feeling and the negative feelings. Your time starts now, just 60 seconds. Quick, this side. One positive feeling. This side, come on. Happiness, okay. Negative. Anger. Positive. Warmth, okay. Can't hear. Bad thoughts meaning what? Sadness. More positive. It's equal to happiness. Is equal to happiness. It's a subset. What else?
Timidness. Timid.
Timidness. T-I-M-I-D. Timid.
Timidness. Timidness, it's a different feeling. It's actually a subset of anxiety, which is again a negative feeling. Happiness, more positive feelings. Come on. Sorry?
Smile.
Smile. Again it is happiness, subset. It's a reaction, right? Negative feelings. Tension. Are we done with 60 seconds? Looks like. Okay, I'll not take much time. Now I want you to read this. Can somebody read this for me? Please. How many negative feelings? And these are not subsets. Fear, anxiety, anger, jealousy, sadness, grief, right?
Guilt.
What else? Guilt, boredom, depression. And look at the positive side. Just 3. So what does it mean statistically? It means that 70% of the feelings that are made in your head are negative. Why the heck do you think you cry? when you're born. Anxiety, coming into the world. Oh shit, what's happening to me? I was so safe. Now imagine if you, as a normal human being, in his head or her head, has 70% negative feelings, how hard have you to work to just remain basically calm or happy? Difficult or easy?
Difficult. Difficult.
Difficult, right? Now after looking at the slide, you feel difficult. But when you see people with the negative feelings, how many of you have taken the effort to understand that? I'm not going to go into who has not done it. But nevertheless, I want to give you another formula. Very simple formula. Psychology is about this. Any industrial psychology. Behavior is a function of B is a function of P into E. What is P? Personality. We talked about it. And what is E?
Environment.
Environment. I am a great person. I have a good personality. I am actually in war. What do you think I'll do?
Fight.
I'll fight.
Fight.
But that's not me.
That's environment.
Right? Similarly, most conflicts have defense mechanisms. I'm not going to talk about everything. So let's focus on only two. The first one is, it starts with denial. Every conflict starts with denial. How many people in conflict say, I agree? Except for the husband and wife, but I always say, I agree. I want her to win. It's a happy marriage, 24 years. 25th, in fact. Yeah, so it starts with denial. I will not get into the steps. But remember, the effort of the person is go to sublimation, which is where you sort of agree. And you'll see the amount of steps that it takes. How many of you knew this? Raise your hand. No? So then please deposit it and repeat check to me. Thank you. Fair. Now, I'll show you one more figure. What is this? Anybody seen this movie?
Yeah.
मेरे पास माँ है, तेरे पास क्या है? Diva, it's conflict, right? Now every conflict has certain amount of feelings. What are those feelings? We need to know the element. What is happening? What's in play? There will be a defense mechanism. We talked about it. It will start with denial. And finally, there will be aggression. The question is the aggression antisocial or pro-social? Pro-social is, I am angry, I express. Antisocial is, I am angry, I'm going to break your head. Now, in the healthcare setting, you meet both. In certain team meetings, you want to be antisocial, but in your physical appearance, you're very pro-social. If given an authority, you would kill your teammate for whatever it takes. Now, what are the conflict management types? Slightly busy slide. I don't want to sort of go into it, but I'm sorry I put this, but what I realize is most teams are about this, especially when you're in disagreement. In this slide, I don't want you to dwell too much, but just remember there are three elements to this. There is an approach where we want to win the argument mutually. There is an approach avoidance where we want to win some when we want to give some, or maybe not want to lose some. And lastly, I don't want to win. I want to prolong this argument so that there is no result. And in any conflict, you need to know the negotiation, right? Somebody needs to know how negotiation is done. So there are negotiation styles. I'm sure everybody knows this is used: win-win, win-lose, lose-win, lose-lose. Now, coming back to this, there is a specific strategy that Blake and Mountain have talked about. This is the research that's been done. This is generally what people follow. One is withdraw. Smoothing is basically, you don't focus on everything, you just focus on the points that matter to the person. Compromising. Most of us do that, right? Forcing, all or none. Anybody who's a Bahubali here? Gunpoint? Do it, otherwise I'll kill you. Last but not the least, the most difficult one is confront and solve. It's very difficult to come to a common minimum program and find a solution to that. Okay? So the first one is lose-lose. The second one that is there, if you look at is win-lose. And last one is the most difficult one, and that's the only win-win option that you have. Okay? Now, when you look at the anatomy of conflict, very important to understand how conflict begins. It's simple. Any conflict is more than just a disagreement. Always remember it. It could be anything, but it is always more than a disagreement. If you don't address it, it will be a fire. the person always responds basis his perceptions. So you have to remember, don't perceive the person, but look at the environment, look at what kind of personality he is or she is. Also, every conflict is going to trigger emotion. So don't estimate that it will be a very happy conflict. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, I like it. Oh. It never happens. Somebody will cry, you'll need a lot of tissue papers, or you'll have to call security. And last but not the least, this is very important. Every conflict has an opportunity to learn. In healthcare setting, it is extremely important to know this. Because ultimately we are treating patients. There can be errors. To err is human, right? But don't leave the opportunity to learn. Now, conflict resolution routes increase your understanding for whatever it takes. Team working is very important. So obviously in a healthcare setting, the leader and the culture of the organization is going to determine how you address conflict. Last, the third one, which most of us don't forget, self-knowledge. I don't know how many people focus on self-knowledge. Do you know yourself? Right? I can actually do a separate session on this. We call conflict management styles as something, it's called CQA square. CQA square. So there are 3 styles. First is competitive, collaborative, compromising, accommodating, and last is avoiding. I can actually do this test, I can deploy this on people, and I can actually tell you how will you react in a certain situation. The idea is not to blame you, but the idea is for you to know, are you ready for conflict? For example, if you take a competitive person in a conflict, what do you think the person will do in a conflict? Hello?
Anger.
What do you think the person will do? He'll never be able to solve it. He'll compete. Right? So in a conflict, you can't have a person who avoids it. Push it under the carpet. Again problem. You can't have somebody who's only accommodating. Maybe you're losing too much. So you need somebody who has an ability to collaborate. Somebody who has the ability to find a way to compromise wherever it is required. Now, these are elements which we need to know in our settings. We focus on care, but we don't focus on mental care. Now, some points again to remember, long list, but I like some of the points here. The most important point in conflict that I believe is most important is to listen first and speak later. It's very difficult for us human beings, most of us. So, the list is there, you can read through it, but to me, any conflict can be resolved if you listen first and react later. Some principles that I want you to take home in a conflict: be calm. There will be emotions. Be magnanimous. Think like an emperor, even if you're not an emperor. Right? Keep the door wide open. Be open to discuss and debate. Be rational. Don't be emotional. Be rational. Think creatively. Sometimes some conflicts require some creativity to solve the situation. Change the environment. Maybe the person doesn't like the hospital bed. Maybe take him to some other place. Maybe a canteen. Have a cup of tea. Walk. Find creative ways to resolve. Compromise wherever there is a way. And yes, find change in words. For example, in Hindi belt here, I came from Mumbai to this place long time ago, and I used to use a lot of tu. And one fine day somebody slapped me. Because no tu here, either you'll say ah, or the way, in Lucknow they use hum. Albeit in Lucknow it's only 1%, but they still use hum. But that's change of words. Maybe it helps. In managing conflict, in social psychology, we call there are 3 elements because we are all part of social psychology. We are in a social setting, right? Conformity, you conform to certain cultures that is available. Compliance. If there are rules, you need to find a way to comply to them. And last but not the least, how do we abide and be obedient to those elements? Again, long list. The thing that I love here, any conflict that protects the person and the incumbent self-esteem is the best, has the best chance of outcome. So when you're in a conflict, ensure that you don't hurt the other person's self-esteem. Don't knock it. It's the worst possible thing to happen in a conflict. Avoid it as far as possible. Rest, I think the appearance, the methodology, I'm sure by now you're liking my conversation, right? Because I appear better, I'm speaking better. Exactly. Your ability to communicate your point is a function of how the person in front of you is going to perceive the entire element. So managing conflict in conclusion is, anybody? Very easy. Very easy. Managing self? Easy or difficult?
Yeah. That's
Difficult. If you ask your colleague, difficult. If you ask your family, they'll say even more difficult. Next is managing relationship. I'm not talking about something outside the house. It is about your teams, your patients, everybody that you interact with. Third and the most important, if you manage these two well, is managing others. You can't manage others if you can't manage self and manage relationships. Period. Doesn't work. If somebody feels it works, be ready for a conflict. So, is it or it is? You know what is this? Nod. That's the classic Indian nod. Most people in the Western world don't understand. Yes, is this? No, is this? We do this. But we Indians understand each other. Right? So, that's about me, Jai Hind. And to know about Ramananvel, that's the website. And to know about me, that's my website. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the patience. Appreciate it.